Okay, cool. All right, SEC Media Day. This is an annual tradition here. Jarod Hamilton, PowerMizzou. What's up, man?
None much. Just got here, so Missouri doesn't go till a little bit later, so I'm just kind of waiting a little bit.
He's already dressing like a champion. Look at him, huh?
What's it like, though? Because I remember last year, I think you said, ballpark 7-8 wins would be like a great season. They smashed it out of the park. It's completely different this year. I don't know if you've seen it, but I'm picking Missouri to even make the SEC championship. Now, I'm not guaranteeing they're the second best team in the SEC, but their path is certainly there with the team they have. What's it like covering a team now that, 9 wins, I think, is a disappointment?
For Missouri, 9 wins, it'd be a little bit disappointing in a way, but I don't know if I could say it's a disappointing for Missouri because you still have to make the CFP to kind of say, oh, we're not a dynasty, but we're going to perennially make this, this playoff. You got to still make it there. They do have a favorable schedule. I mean, in my mind, I'm at 10-2. I'm really kind of leaning 11-1, but I say 10-2 just in case,
Embrace it. Embrace it. Not a lot of teams get to say that,
I'm saying 10-2 just in case, Alabama game is going to be tough.
Yeah.
There may be one like a Texas A&M early. I think that's the first road game, SEC road game of the season. Mm-hmm. That may be tough. Auburn can be, something around there. Then you got Oklahoma when they come to Columbia week 9 or 10, whenever it is. I know it's after the bye week following the Alabama game. So what it's like covering a program like this, everybody's excited. Obviously, there's a lot of buzz going on. But there's some challenges with the schedule, actually, when I think about it, because you think 10-2, automatic playoff berth, right? But when you think about all the other games surrounding mostly the Alabama, Oklahoma, if you don't win those games or you have a slip-up, everybody can just say, look at your schedule. Look at who you're playing. They avoid Georgia, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Texas. That's a lot of. So in a good way, it's you just got to win a game or two, the right game or two, and you're good. But in the other way, if you lose the 2 big games, whatever people think those are, I'm assuming Alabama's automatically one of them. They're going to say, well, who'd you really beat, type of thing. So it just depends.
That's funny because that's what's come up because we've been on a lot of shows here, and when we talk Mizzou schedule, they always go down to the Oklahoma, the Alabama game. Those, you have to get one of those wins. A 10-2 Mizzou may get left out if they don't beat one of those 2 teams.
Yeah, and so you're looking at if it's 10-2, and let's say they're 9-10. I forgot where I was listening to this. But basically they were talking about Notre Dame and how what their situation is. They can't be in the top 4, but what if they're 5 and Missouri, or if Missouri's kind of in the back end and Notre Dame, they don't have to play a conference championship. What if they get in and Missouri does it because of whatever happens? There's so many different scenarios, and so everybody's obviously thinking positive with Missouri right now. But there's a lot of things you just, I guess, don't think about right now. But they go 10-2, and the right team behind them also goes 10-2, whatever. But they play and they beat a team, they beat a Texas or Ole Miss or whatever it may be. Now they may get in over Missouri, so they've got to go all out, really.
Did you realize how big of a rivalry the Oklahoma game was? Because I literally had no idea. We don't pay a ton of attention to Oklahoma because they weren't in this conference. Now we love them. They're a part of us now too. You know what I mean? But my God, every Missouri fan seems to hate Oklahoma, and it's funny because Oklahoma fans are like, oh, they're irrelevant. They don't even consider it, a tough matchup. But I think that's going to be the best home game for Missouri this year.
No doubt. The Sooner or Tiger Sooner Peace Pipe Trophy, that thing. See, Oklahoma, I can understand why Oklahoma fans, the rivalry win-loss record, it's lopsided. But I can see why it's definitely reinvigorated. Obviously Twitter has a lot, X, Twitter, whatever you call it, has a lot to do with it. And you start thinking about, a few years ago, Luther Burden committed to Oklahoma, goes to Missouri. Last year, Williams and Airy, he's wearing the gloves. He's wearing the gloves and all that stuff. And then that was a big battle between those two. Caden Green coming over from Oklahoma to Missouri. There's a lot of Theo Weiss. Theo Weiss came from Oklahoma to Missouri. There's a lot of things that goes on, between those programs. And now that people are seeing Missouri as, possible top 10 team, a possible CFP contender, there's a lot more buzz around it that, when this rivalry reignites, it can be a little bit more equal.
Yeah. I think they're going to take that pop from them, too.
So what's on?
They're going to take that peace pipe from them, too?
Well, that's their goal. I mean,
I had no idea that was a thing, the peace pipe.
I'm in. I'm embracing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, well, let me ask you on that note, 3 years ago, Mizzou wasn't a hot name on this road, and now it's kind of flipped here. And it's almost like Drinking Company has forced people to talk about Mizzou. How does Drink's very emotional. I get that, and last year I thought he hit the nail on the head coming out here saying less, just prove it on the field. Well, now that he's kind of proved that on the field, when Drink rolls in here in a couple hours, are we going to have that swagger, or are we going to have that, hey, we still haven't got to where we need to be yet?
He's already talked about not saying anything too reckless to give anybody a soundbite. I think he's gonna have that swagger. I mean, that's him. But I think they know what the next step is, and so they know it's put up or shut up type of thing. So I think he's going to come in here and he's going to have his swag and stuff, but he's going to still be about business and, kind of focus on the season ahead because, I believe, I don't know this, but I think in their mind, you beat Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl, you finished, number 8 in the top 10. So they're thinking, well, if this is last year, we'd be a CFP contender. So they're trying to make that a reality this year. So I think they're a little bit more business this time around.
Now, we firmly believe Luther Burden is the best player in the country. How sold are you after seeing him play so many games?
He's definitely up there.
Yeah.
And my brain is just going blank thinking. I know there's just so much talent, in the country, but he's definitely one of the top 10. I think he's the best receiver in the country. I mean, what can he not do, really? And the fact that he's got another year ahead of him and he can improve and grow and stuff like that. And I go back to this receiving room, bringing back your top 7 receivers. So it's only my 3rd season on the beat, but I don't think that happens too often where a team's bringing their top 7 to go along with their quarterback, go along with their offensive coordinator coming back. And their offensive line is only improving. The run game, you lose Cody Schrader, but you bring in a couple of guys who, those are some good pieces to have. So I'm thinking, really, when can a team double him? They will have to, but you really can't necessarily do that with some of the pieces they have, on this offense. So he should have a really, really good season. What I'm thinking.
I haven't seen it, and I'm sure we will start seeing it here sooner than later. Devonta Smith kind of broke the mold for Heisman's. It's always been a quarterback / running back type deal.
Right.
But Luther really does have the attributes to make a push for that Heisman talk. Are you starting to see any type of Heisman campaign starting over there in Columbia?
Well, I'm going to ask Drink in about an hour. I think it will happen, though. I mean, again, one of the most dynamic players in college football, and that was evident his first year. And then last year, I mean, I want to say it was like his first 6 or 7 games. He had like 95 yards in the first 6 or 7 games, just going crazy. So I'm pretty sure that Heisman campaign for him and Brady is going to get going this year.
And because I think I've made the argument that I think Luther was, there's so many, you can't just give one player so much credit, but I give it to him for kind of turning that tide. Because like you said, he could have went to Oklahoma. Obviously, Georgia was in the mix. I think even Ohio State. I mean, that's where elite players go. But he decided to stay home, and it seemed to turn the tide of the program a little bit. If they have a big year, I'm not saying he's got to win the Heisman, but if he has another great year and is likely a top draft pick, do you think he'd be the key piece, other than maybe hiring Drink or whatever, that kind of turns Mizzou football program around?
It's a bunch of little things that's been adding up over the last couple of seasons. That starts one of them, and I think as far as recruiting, that started to actually get the ball rolling, and we've seen it already with Williams Nwaneri. I mean, top 10 kid in the country, he decides to stay home, and I know before I came, I feel like Missouri had a bit of an issue getting those home state kids to go to the program. So now they've got that going, and there's been a lot of adaptability. For example, yeah, hiring Drink and stuff, he's a great recruiter. But when it came to coaching, I just keep thinking in my mind, 6-6 at the same spot last year when I came here. He made the decision to get Kirby Moore in the offseason and let him run the offense basically, and they had great success. And that's adaptability. I think this is going to be their third defensive coordinator or fourth defensive coordinator, like 5 years, something like that. I mean, a lot of adaptability to keep that going in addition to the offense and stuff like that. So everybody's kind of knowing their role, finding their space in this, whether it's players, coaching staff, whatever it may be, and it's working, and now they're a cohesive unit, and everything's flowing well for them.
One thing I want to say is defensive. You mentioned coordinators there, and I think that's a good sign. No, I mean fans hate it when you're losing coordinators, but that means there's success coming from that program. One thing that a lot of people aren't talking about Mizzou was how great that defense was last year. With Batoon coming in, what are we going to have a noticeable drop off on that side of the ball, or do you think that we've got enough pieces in play here to kind of follow suit what we were doing last year?
It's going to be hard when you lose, 5 defensive players to the NFL draft. It's a lot of talent. Yeah. So there'll be some differences. I still think they'll be pretty decent on defense. They brought in a lot of guys in the transfer portal that, plug and play can make some plays. As far as Corey Batoon, runs the same defense as Blake Baker, so 4-2-5 with the 3 safeties. That works out, and he'll do what Blake did in his first season. He's going to learn the playbook that's in place, and then he'll implement his own things as he goes along. Don't know how far along he's in that process yet, because during spring ball, he was just talking about, physical development of the players and stuff like that. So I know over the last few months he's been tackling the playbook and stuff like that. And so we'll know a little bit more in fall camp. But I think the defense will still be pretty decent. They still got some good impact players there. They think Dre Norwood, he's been CB3 the last couple of years behind KAD and Ennis Rayshaw. Drink said the last time we talked to him, he thinks he's an all-SEC type of player. Got Dalen Carnell, he looks like an NFL guy. So they've got, pieces there, the linebacker group. They got so much talent there. I'm like, is this going to be more of a committee thing? They've got pieces everywhere. It's just who fits where. When do you start upgrading those younger talents and giving them more, more reps, like a Marvin Burks, who was their top recruit for the class of 23 at safety, like stuff like that. But I think they'll be all right on defense.
You mentioned Dalen Carnell. Shout out his dad. He's going to watch this for sure. But he's a big fan of the show. We love him. But offensive line for Missouri. I know they've added some pieces. Obviously, you mentioned Caden Green already. How do you think that shakes out with Caden Green? What position do you think he'll play? And I don't know if you've seen this drop, but I'm not a big believer in Pro Football Focus, because that's a different story. But the one thing I do look at them is snap count. And Missouri had 5 offensive linemen last year. They essentially played all 5. They didn't have I don't think they had another guy that had 100 snaps on the offensive line.
Maybe.
It was close.
Johnson, Marcellus Johnson. He was kind of their 6th offensive lineman. He played a little bit, but yeah, for the most part, it was their 5. I think. Well, when Caden first got there before spring ball, we was thinking, well, he's definitely going to be the left tackle,
right?
And that makes sense for him. He can play that, but he was playing left guard at Oklahoma. I think he had over 500 snaps at left guard as a true freshman. But once they got Marcus Bryant from SMU, 6'8", 315, 320. I'm going to ask Drink, what are you going to do? It seems pretty obvious what they're going to do. Bryant, Green, Tollison, Cameron Johnson, and Armand Membu. That's really good. It wouldn't surprise me if he said, they wanted to keep open competition for a couple spots, not because they're worried about the players, but they've got their depth is starting to look really nice. Logan Reichert, it's another 6'6", 350-pounder out there that they can throw in. They got Javen Richardson. They got him in the portal and stuff like that. So they added him, I guess, to the signing class. But they've got plenty of players that they can throw in and give opportunities to. So I think they're really good. And this is probably the best the line has been in. Last year, the line was a semifinalist for the Joe Moore Award for the best offensive line. So it was already doing well. So they have a chance to upgrade that. And that's after losing their All-American left tackle to the NFL draft. So I think they're doing well, but that's on paper. We got to see, what happens in fall camp and during the season.
Right.
What's the timeline on that stadium? So are they going to start at the tail end of this season, start working on it, or?
I'm not even sure. It's gonna take. I know the plans are just getting set in place and stuff like that, and they've got like a million things rolling at once. Every time, like I tweeted today, like the off season's over. In a way, the off season happened, but it was like not a full off season because recruiting off the chain the last couple of weeks. They've got that. We got talking about the team going forward. We got SEC Media Days. We got the stadium. We got a new AD. There's a new coach, or new DC, new edge coach. There is nothing that ever that stops with this
business
team.
is good.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going on in my brain right now.
Because right down the street in Arkansas, there's nothing going on.
Well, they got John Calipari.
Well, short of basketball.
Yeah,
that's true.
I'm not going to back like basketball is my thing right now. But they do have that going on.
Every Arkansas person we spoke to yesterday, that's what they said. They're like, basketball season's right around the corner. I'm like, come on, man. But speaking of the portal, I know everyone that we speak to is pretty high on Missouri's running backs that they added. Good players. But what are the chances that a year from now we're looking back and say, man, we kind of underestimated the loss of Cody Schrader, because he was phenomenal at the end of the last year. He surprised me. I had him undervalued as well. He was such a big part of that team last year.
I mean, there's certainly a chance you can go back and say, I don't know if these guys aren't Cody Schrader, but what I'll say, like, definitely give credit to when it's due. Nate Noel, App State's 8th leading rusher when he left. He's had a 1,000-yard season before. In spring ball, he showed his speed. He already looks like he's one of the fastest players on the team. He's got really good, receiving chops, so that's something they like. And when you think Marcus Carroll, Schrader finished 3rd in the FBS in rushing. Carroll was 10th. He had 1,350 yards. He had 13, 14 touchdowns, something like that. And when you look at their playing styles along with their size, I mean, it's almost a carbon copy. Mm-hmm. Downhill, north and south runners, bruiser type of guys. They're both about 5'9", 215. Carroll may have them by like 5 or 6 pounds, but they do a lot the same. They've got that breakaway speed, if they get in the open field, but they're trying to smash mouth. So we're going to see. A lot of the hype was around Noel during spring ball, but for running backs, for the most part, you really get to tell until they start, they put the pads on and they do a little bit live stuff in fall camp. So there may be a little bit more buzz about Carroll. Not that he didn't have a good spring ball, but only so much you can do against the air.
Well, on Cody Schrader, that's a guy that just came out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. Is there a guy that maybe you're looking at that maybe nobody's talking about as much right now, but maybe in December, 1st of January, we're looking back and saying, now this guy was a dude?
Not necessarily a walk-on, because Cody Schrader's story is not.
Well, yeah, not exactly the same origin story, but just maybe somebody that's, because when you talk about, Mizzou, it's Luther, it's Weiss, it's Brady Cook, those are the three that keep popping up. But is there anybody like Mook or something, that you see maybe taking that next step this year?
It's hard because, see, last year when you're 6-6 and you're kind of on that line of 500, I'm not saying this is what they were doing, but you'll probably give more of a chance to kind of see, like, what do we got? We need a spark somewhere. I mean, I feel like that's more prone to happen. But when you look at the team now, coming off 11-2 season, and they've got so much returning production, over like 70% production coming back, it's hard to be like, this person's going to be a breakout. So the only way I can really answer that is maybe what transfers to be looking at. And then you just go back to the offensive line, and you're like, they've got 2 on the left side that I'm looking at. And then you just talked about the running backs. They got 2 there. I guess I know I'm kind of switching it up a little bit for you, but if there's a position I'd be looking at the most, maybe it's probably somewhere like cornerback or defensive tackle, because they had like basically 4 starting caliber defensive tackles, and they lost 3 of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then again, losing KAD and Ennis, like, that was one of the best 1-2 cornerback tandems the last couple of seasons. So what do they do? What do they do there? So I don't know if I could say who would be the breakout, but that's the positions I'd be looking out for where that breakout should happen, maybe.
Right. If Missouri wins 10 or more games again, would you put Drink firmly as a top 5 head coach in the SEC?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this league is always hard. This league's hard, and you never know who's gonna. No one was thinking he would probably win SEC Coach of the Year last year, and so you never know in this league that it takes one thing, one season, and it changes everything, changes the outlook of the program and stuff like that. But yeah, if he can do it again with this group of talent, with I'm not going to call it necessarily pressure, but I feel like everybody feels there's a little pressure because expectations. Yeah, and I think I think they get it. I think 10-2 probably gets them in the CFP.
Right.
As long as nothing crazy happens, and those 2 losses are to teams that are decent.
Right.
Yeah.
Can't see no. I don't want to throw nobody under the bus, but you can't see no
You can
losses.
on this show. Yeah.
You just can't be losing to no one you should be beaten by,
Right.
25, 30 points or whatever.
But to your point, I mean, last year, this time, a lot of Missouri fans were on the fence of Drink. Mm-hmm. And I remember, who was it? Was it Memphis right before Kansas State? They were like, oh, God. And he said something like, Brady Cook can date my daughter if she was old enough. And that did not go over. It was like, we got to move on. And then they beat Kansas State, and they get that momentum. But, again, we don't have to rehash all that. But a lot can change in a year.
It can, and so they're used to fans switching up. I think they understand that fans are just passionate about the team and they want them to do well. So I just did a story on Brady Cook, and he's talking about that same exact thing in 2022 when he's playing whole year with basically one arm that wasn't his throwing arm and having to deal with that backlash and stuff like that. Yeah, it's upsetting, it's disappointing, but he healed back up, he won his job back, and then he performed well, and now they're all for him. And he could take that and be bitter. Drink could take some of these fans and say shove it, I guess, or whatever. But he knows what the fan base means, and they rather have the fan base with them, supporting them as they try to make this run and get into this top 12, and whether that's have that bye week and be a top 4 team or hosting a playoff game or whatever the situation may be. They know what the fans means to the program, so I think they're all good now.
Yeah.
This last question I got for you. November 9th, Oklahoma's coming to town, and I'm hoping that we get up there. Drink hasn't invited us yet, but my question to you is, how many touchdowns do you guys win by?
How many touchdowns do they win by? I can't really predict the game because I'm not going to act like I completely know what Oklahoma's working with and what they've got, brewing over there. I'm not thinking of Oklahoma as being any type of slouch right now until they give me a reason to think that, I guess. So I'm not putting any predictions on what the score will be. I'm not getting anybody to go in my mentions and blow me up about something I said in July. It's not that serious to me. So we'll see. I think that and the Alabama game will be the 2 games of the year everybody's looking at. If I had an outside game where I'm just like, I want to see how this goes, it's probably Texas A&M, Kyle Field. Like, I've heard the stories about that place and how the stadium shakes and all that good stuff. So I'll see what's to it when I get there.
All right, Jarod Hamilton of PowerMizzou, one last thing for you. We're 2 Tennessee guys. Can you just clarify something for us? Staying on business. What does that mean?
Well, first off, every time I hear it, I just kind of laugh because Drink said, I feel like he was saying, we're standing on business, Josh, and to be honest, get him hip to it. He's standing on business. You see, there's no ing and there's no ing at the end. He's standing on business, but basically, we came here, we conquered type of thing. We told you, this is what we're about. So it's just staying true to your principles, I guess. And his principles was trying to beat them down like Tennessee has given them the last couple of seasons. So
right.
I guess it's about fair play, trying to get their lick back, as we say.
Yeah.
Hey, before you go, can you tell our audience how to follow you and how to find your work?
Yes, follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you call it, Jarod C. Hamilton, JarodChamilton. Follow my work at PowerMizzou.com. I mean, I'm going to be here all day as soon as I leave this booth, writing all day until it's time to do interviews and meetings and stuff like that. So follow for the work there.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys.